Hey, Geoff, well, thanks for taking time out to talk today. So to get started, I guess I was reading about this lawsuit that's been going on over the band's name. So I wanted to find out first, are you officially, using the name, or is it still in dispute, or what's happening with that?
Yeah, I can't talk about it much because we're kind of nearing the end of it now. But yeah, both sides have the legal use of the name for now, and so yeah, we're just continuing on until the settlement happens.
So, so in terms of, you've each formed your own kind of versions of the band, right? So you're leading the one, and then there's the other one. And how has it been to be making music while this is going on? Is it a distraction, or is the music kind of an escape? Or
Well, at first, it was a complete distraction because it was a complete disruption of life as we knew it. But for the past year and a half, I think it's been operating fine. Both sides are using the name, and both are touring, and so it's been pretty normal.
Right. Is it confusing to the fans, though, to know, who they're going to see? Or, I mean, there's no distinction between the two of you, right? It's just both use the name, or?
I suppose it could be confusing to some people,
right.
But, we live in the age of the internet where, you can pretty much find out anything you want to know about pretty quickly,
Right. And now for this show in Atlantic City, I thought it mentioned as the 20th anniversary of the Operation Mindcrime. Are you playing that album in its entirety, or just going to be highlighting that? Or?
Yeah, we're playing the whole thing, which is really a treat. It's a fan favorite, and definitely this is the time to play it now, being the anniversary of the album. And so yeah, we play the whole thing in its entirety, and then we come back hopefully for an encore if the audience appreciates it, for another set of favorite Queensryche songs.
So you kind of touch on the hits from the other albums, or the upfront in the second part of the show.
Correct.
And so can you talk about this record obviously really helped establish the band, and why do you think it was so successful, and it obviously holds up really well. So can you sort of talk about why it was so important to you guys?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, I was saying, can you talk about the album was obviously helped to really establish the band, and it was such a successful album for you. Can you talk about why everything clicked on it, and why it sort of helped to really push you to another level, I think?
Yeah, it did. It came out at a very good time in the record, industry's history, with, this is, pre-downloading, and, so people were actually buying records then, and we had a very strong record company, EMI, who, was worldwide and had a very good, handle on the business side of things. So, yeah, it was a good record, and it came out at a great time.
And in terms of musically, what were you guys trying to do with this?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again? It's kind of a little hard to hear you on the speakerphone.
Yeah, sorry. I said musically, what were you guys trying to accomplish with the album? I've seen your influences, you have sort of a range of influences that get cited with you guys, everybody from Pink Floyd to Queen to Iron Maiden, and, you obviously forged your own sound. But what, with this album, did it all sort of come together musically for you? Or?
Well, we were interested in writing from, or I should say I was very interested in writing from a conceptual standpoint, and had worked with telling stories with the songs, early on. Our previous album, Rage Forward, was a kind of a concept record, but not a full-blown story. And I really wanted to write a complete work, a complete album that was all based on a theme or a storyline. And so I had written the story and brought it to the band, and we all decided that this was a good story to start writing from, And so it just became, the focus of our intent at that time.
And is that, do you like doing concept albums more than a regular album, or is it just sort of different creative challenges?
Well, both styles of records are interesting to do. Of course, the concept record, the story album, is quite a bit more involved because you have to think ahead quite a bit and write to a theme that you've established. So you have to connect all the dots, so to speak. So it's quite a bit more challenging. And I guess, honestly, I prefer that. I prefer telling a story with the music rather than a number of individual stories,
And now with this, new lineup that you're fronting with the band, kind of a whole new chapter. Where do you want to go? Do you keep making new music, or what are the plans for you?
Yeah, well, we're going to finish out this cycle of touring, which I think brings us up to fall, and we'll start focusing on another new record at that time, I think. And by spring, I imagine the lawsuit will be settled, so we'll be able to, continue on doing what we're going to do,
Mm-hmm. And in sort of forming the new version of the band, what were you looking for? How were you trying to, sort of put it together? What was your, ideal? Is this like the ideal version of the band for you, or what were you trying to do?
Well, first and foremost, I was trying to put together a group of people that a certain caliber of musician, that could perform the music. Queensryche music is somewhat deceptive in its construct. On first, second, third listen, it seems, fairly easy, but then when you actually start breaking it apart and actually trying to play it, you find that, this is very different than I've ever played before, different kind of music than I've ever played before. There's a lot of really intricate parts to it and timing changes, and my lyrical phrasing is very unique. And a lot of musicians have a difficulty grasping what it is that's going on here because it doesn't follow the standard rock rules, So I wanted to find musicians that could play the stuff well, And then secondly, I wanted to have a group of people that had a friendship and a camaraderie and a similar music vision,
Mm-hmm.
So I got in contact with guys that I've known a long time. For example, Rudy Sarzo on bass. I met Rudy back in 1983, touring together, and he always had struck me as being a consummate professional musician. And he's played with a number of different bands, so he had a lot of experience. Adapting to that band's style and that kind of delivery. So I immediately thought of him, and he was very happy to join me. The same with Simon Wright. I met him when he was playing with AC/DC, and we were touring with them. Same thing, he's a fantastic drummer and very, very musical, and we get along really well. Everybody in the band gets along incredibly, and there's a camaraderie that is very evident when we play, and very evident to the audience. Robert Sarzo, Rudy's brother, I met him years ago and got along famously with him. Randy Gain on keyboards and Kelly Gray on the other guitar are two musicians and friends that I've been making music with and friends with for going on 40 years now. So we have a lot of history together, all these guys, through playing and touring together, and it's really just been a fantastic experience, sharing music together. And then we recorded a record together, I guess last year, Frequency Unknown, and hopefully this fall or winter we'll be getting together again to write second record. And I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be another fantastic experience I'm going to probably never forget.
And is it a lot different than, with the original lineup? Was there a lot more sort of tension behind the scenes or more challenges there? Or?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Lineups, there was more creative tension or more tension behind the scenes, or?
No, not really. It was a really smooth running organization for years and years, and just in the last couple of years, it just erupted into this unforeseeable situation that brings us to where we are now. So it was really, really quite surprising, actually.
Okay, and before we go today, I wanted to sort of touch on, some of the band's influences over the years and how you've gotten to where you are today. Like, who do you see as your sort of major, influences?
Well, I grew up in that wonderful time of the 60s and the 70s where, music was really expanding. Rock music was just growing by leaps and bounds, and for a number of reasons. One, it was sort of a fledgling industry at that time, and there wasn't such a stranglehold on bands and artists to conform to a niche in order to sell them, It was all rock music, and so you heard and you were exposed to all kinds of bands and artists, everybody from Joni Mitchell and Dylan, to Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and all the different incarnations of that group, to Yes and Genesis, the Beatles, the Stones, all these great rock bands that took their music and started at some point and then expanded on it dramatically, So there was a lot of variance, to what was out there in the world and what you could tune into on the radio and hear. And, somewhere in the 90s, everything started getting very, compartmentalized. And, all these subgenres started popping up and it became very difficult to be what you wanted to be. You were really forced into a box, and that box had labels on it so they could sell you, And so I guess to answer your question, I was influenced by everyone from the 60s and 70s. I didn't have a set, group of musicians or artists that I only listened to. I listened to everything. I brought all those influences into, what I do in Queensryche. If you listen, you can hear, jazz influences and R&B influences. You can hear, progressive rock influences and, Motown. You can hear the Beatles. It's all there.
But there's a heavier quality to it, and it's more of the metal aspect, right? That's kind of where you take those elements, but you sort of push it up a notch or two, I would say.
Yeah, well, metal, is another subgenre, and that's typically dictated by really super loud distorted guitars,
Right.
And we use loud distorted guitars, but we write the chords and the melodies based on our other musical influences,